Addiction comes in many faces. Hard drugs, prescription drugs, soft drugs such as cigarettes, alcohol, unrecognized drugs such as food, and unrecognized mental drugs such as unhealthy relationships. These are all different faces of things that you can be addicted to through in life, and that if you get old enough, you will eventually struggle with one. You may not struggle with heroin, but you may struggle with prescription pills. You may not struggle with prescription pills, but you may struggle with cigarettes. You may not struggle with cigarettes, but you may struggle with food. You may not struggle with food, but you may struggle with unhealthy relationships. There's different faces of addiction. The first time I saw the face of addiction was growing up. When I grew up, my parents got divorced at the age of 8, and my older sister basically raised me. And I would love it because here I am somewhere 10 to 12 years old, and my sister's like 16, 17, and I'm hanging out with the older kids. I'm hanging out with the cool kids. I thought I was on top of the world. But my sister, through a series of decisions, got addicted to heroin. And then she actually went to a first rehab, and she met a bunch of people in rehab. And then when she got out, she started hanging with those people she met in rehab. And what I remember, part of the bottom was, we ended up, she was hanging out with her friends. I was with her. She was overseeing me. We were in the Bronx in the housing projects. Her and a friend got bored. They decided to pick up heroin. She starts shooting up. She falls asleep. I'm in the back seat. I'm just drinking the alcohol. I was drinking beer, 40. I thought I was on top of the world. I thought I was cool. You couldn't tell me anything. And hours and past, before I know it's the middle of the night, my sister's still passed out sleeping. And I'm in the back seat. Cops come. And they question everybody. My sister, everybody wakes up. And they said to my sister, they knew something was going on. They knew drugs were going on. But they couldn't find anything. They said to my sister, look, not for nothing. You want to do what you want with your life, but why would you put, your young brother in harm's way? It's the middle of the night, you got him out, et cetera, et cetera. And that moment, something just clicked. Because for the longest, I really didn't think about it. I was just thinking about I was hanging out with the cool kids. Because I was young. You're impressionable. You're given to peer pressure. But it's not that my sister didn't love me. She did many loving, caring things for me throughout my childhood. But when she was at her worst with addiction, she would put me in very compromising positions. Not because she didn't love me. It's because when addiction gets so strong, when you get so out of control, and that's the definition of an addiction, being out of control and having no control over your life, you will put yourself and everyone you know in a compromising position. You will steal from others, and if it's not, stealing like a TV, you will steal their time, you will steal their emotions. An unhealthy relationship is you are stealing someone else's emotions. And don't look at it different. Don't look at heroin and an unhealthy relationship different. And if you do, then you are not mature enough. And that's part of the conversation with addiction. All of us, myself included, have to be mature and compassionate enough to realize that we'll all struggle with addiction at some point. Maybe not heroin, but maybe in an unhealthy relationship. And if you think an unhealthy relationship won't get you in a frenzy, I remember talking to somebody. I was like, trying to, I was cool with them. They broke up with somebody. And they said, Sam, I just broke up with them. But you don't realize I was just on the phone with them. And I sounded like another person. I wasn't even myself. And they said all type of reckless things. I've seen people almost on the verge of killing someone else over like a breakup. And there's plenty of people that do in this world. It's a drug because your hormones are racing. You're mentally out of control. And then to make up for that, you'll go manipulate somebody else to give you attention and that hurts somebody else, and it's a chain reaction. That's an addiction. Gambling, an addiction. People look bad at heroin drugs, but gambling is an addiction. Will harm your mental well-being and will cause you to do reckless things. Prescription drugs. Walgreens is the new crack dealer. I see society now, and there's starting to be light shed on it, but not enough now. My sister, it's basically, she's a functioning person, but prescription drugs still abuses them. I don't say it in judgment of her, but it's an addiction. Myself, food. I was morbidly obese, 350 pounds. It's an addiction. Pizza night every night is an addiction. Or, just cheating, just having a cheat day on the weekend, that's an addiction. Sugar and salt. Scientific studies show that they are more addictive on the brain than cocaine. You'll be able to stop cocaine before you can stop eating the salty and sugary snacks. And if you're overweight and you look down on somebody who struggles with heroin or prescription drugs, you're a hypocrite. And that's why even though I can speak passionate about this and I'm confident enough to put boundaries up, I have humility that I've struggled with different things, not any hard drugs. The most I ever did was alcohol, weed, and cigarettes. And through the grace of God, I quit all of them. I live a totally healthy and happy life. But I've been through enough in life where I can have compassion. How do you deal with addiction? You fall, you get up. You smoke cigarettes inside there, you have to break them, throw them in there, want to quit, ask God for grace, and then 2 hours later, you're going to be in the trash can picking up cigarettes. Any addiction is just like that. You have to fall, you have to get up, you have to keep going. Next, boundaries. You have to have boundaries. You can't hang around with certain people that are still smoking weed, that are just coming out of a rehab. The people you have around you is huge. Not to judge them, but you're still like a baby. You're an infant. You have to protect that life until you're strong enough to be around craziness and not deal with it. But when you're just struggling to get out of addiction, whether it's heroin, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's weed, whether it's food, you can't be around a dinner table where everybody's eating junk. That's what I learned. You can't. You're not mature enough. You don't have enough good habits. Addictions are habitual things. They're routines. They're habits. They're a mental stronghold. How do you deal with it? Don't hang around with certain people, whether it's at the dinner table or whether it's, you know what I mean, out in the projects, wherever it is. You can't hang around certain people that are doing certain things. Alcohol. You think it's cute to have wine night and go toast, you know what I mean, at some fancy restaurant on the side of the beach? It's not. I don't say that in judgment of anybody. I'm not saying that to hurt. But when I see now, I mean, I didn't always see it like this, but now I'm mature. I'm just speaking on it, not from judgment, from compassion. When I see someone toasting alcohol, what I see is someone toasting to self-medication. There is a mental imbalance. There's something mentally there that's hurting them. And to relieve that mental stress, whether it's too much responsibilities, whether it's recovering from an unhealthy relationship, or whether it's just dealing with the shit of life, they're trying to numb their mind. And that alcohol, that routine of drinking wine every night has become a habit. Habits become your life. Your life forms around habits. You have to build healthy habits, so that's how your life revolves around, health and well-being. And alcohol, even if it's not to the point, where you're like stooped over on the side of that's what I mean. It's like, it's not a stereotype. People see alcohol. I see somebody in a bad neighborhood with a brown bag and they say, oh, that's alcoholism. That's an extreme form. But alcoholism could be at a beautiful beachside resort with all rich people and you're toasting wine. That's, to me, still self-medication. It's not in an extreme form. It's maybe but it's still harmful. But then, Sam, what are you saying? We can't do anything fun in life? I mean, I'm totally don't do any of that stuff anymore. I'm 37 now. I mean, it took me years to get to this place. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not making this video and say, this is what you should do. Because you have to go through all these different things. And I understand that, sometimes alcohol, sometimes food, sometimes, gambling, they lead to some fun in life initially. Long term, that addiction gets stronghold and you end up in an unhealthy place. But I can't say that in judgment because we all will struggle with that. Again, I end how I started. There's different phases of addiction. How do you deal with it? You ask God for grace. When I went through different AA programs with my sister, they all start with recognizing that there is something greater than us. They just refer to it as like a higher being. They don't specifically call it a religion, but faith, grace, asking for grace. And then the other bottom line thing I got from AA meetings is one day at a time. Remember, I was at an AA meeting for my sister, and I was with my mom because my mom was trying to deal with how do you raise a child that's addicted. And some guy got up and he said whatever his name was, and he was like, he's been clean for 30 years. And when he said that, I said, what the hell is this guy doing at AA meeting? He hasn't had a drink in 30 years. He goes, but I realized that I'm one drink away from being an alcoholic. That 30 years of sobriety did not allow pride to build up. And I'm not saying that you have to keep going to AA meetings or that you should even go to them, but I'm sharing this experience that what I got from when he said that was the humility, the urgency, that every day he had to be so mindful of his decisions not to go backwards. That's what I got from that. And that's the mind. I always speak on it, urgency. You can't think that you could just play with certain things. You got to be very careful with your spirit and with your habits. It's not easy. So this is like the third time I've tried to make a video on this topic. I didn't upload the other two because some of them were too harsh, some of them were too long-winded. I want to share different things in my life that I've experienced. I want to share the different faces of addiction, whether it's food, whether it's unhealthy relationships, whether it's heroin, whether it's gambling, all different faces of addiction. Weed. We all struggle when they all hurt us financially, physically, mentally. They hurt our relationships. They determine sometimes our relationships. The other part to how to deal with it is boundaries. You have to limit access to certain people, to certain situations, to certain things. There's different faces of addictions. How you deal with addiction is the grace to push forward, asking God for help. Fall, you get up. Throw the cigarettes out, then maybe 2 hours later, you're picking them up. You got to keep falling and get up. And boundaries, limit access to people, to situations, whether it's at a dinner table where people are eating fried chicken and you know you shouldn't be around it because you can't handle it, or if it's with your friends that they're smoking weed, watching, Friday for the millionth time, or, whether it's alcohol, whether, your friends, your yuppie friends, they want to go to a nice restaurant and toast wine every night, and they think that's cute. It's not cute. There's a better way of being. It's hard to get there. And I understand life is hard, so I'm not saying any of this in judgment. I'm not sitting on a high horse. Because all of us are just like that guy. We're one drink away. We're one smoke away. We're one gambling bet away. We're one step away from going back to the abyss. It's only by the grace of God. Let us live with an urgent mind to keep ourselves in a healthy place as best as possible. Stay inspired.